Location: Town: Whispering Pines, Montana. A small, isolated town deep in the wilderness. Population under 2,000. 911 Dispatch Center: a small, outdated call center on the edge of town, housed in an old, prefabricated government building. Surroundings: dense pine forests, long stretches of empty highway, deep lakes, and abandoned mines. The nearest city is over 100 miles away. Weather: bitterly cold winters, frequent blackouts due to snowstorms, and long nights where the sky feels heavier than it should. It was nearing the end of my shift when the call came in. The old landline phone at my station crackled, its green digital display flickering weakly in the dim light of the dispatch office. The weather outside was brutal, the kind of Montana cold that freezes your bones, turns your breath into fog the moment you step outside. The entire town had been blanketed in snow for the past 3 days. The roads were dead silent, save for the occasional snowplow crawling through the streets like a sluggish metal insect. Nights like this, the calls were usually the same: car accidents, power outages, maybe a lost hiker. But this call was different. I glanced at the caller ID. It wasn't a normal number, just a string of zeros. Whispering Pines Emergency Dispatch, I answered, my voice steady. What's your emergency? At first, there was only static, a slow, distorted hum, like the sound of wind filtering through an old radio. I almost thought it was a deadline when a voice whispered, I need help. It was a child, a young girl, soft, breathless. All right, sweetheart, I said, keeping my voice calm. Can you tell me your name? Silence. Then, he's outside. My fingers tightened around the phone. Who's outside? A long, shuddering pause. Then the line cut out. The call log flashed unknown origin. No way to trace it. No number. No location. I leaned back, exhaling sharply. Probably a prank. Some kid messing around on a disconnected line. Still, something about it felt wrong. I was about to shake it off when I noticed the envelope sitting on my desk. I hadn't seen it before. It was plain, manila, unmarked. Someone must have left it during my shift. My gut twisted slightly as I flipped it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, and written on it, in fading typewriter ink, was a list of rules. Rules for the Whispering Pines Emergency Dispatch Center. Rule 1. If you receive a call from an unknown number between 2 a.m. and 3:30 a.m., do not trace it. Do not attempt a callback. Just listen. Rule 2. If the caller says, he's outside, hang up immediately. Do not acknowledge them. Rule 3. The phone will ring at exactly 3:13 a.m. It will not be a person. Let it go to voicemail. Do not answer. Rule 4. If you hear breathing on the line but no one speaks, put the call on hold and count to 60 before resuming. If the breathing continues, disconnect the call and log it as an unresolved incident. Rule 5. Sometimes you will receive a call from your own number. You will be tempted to answer. Do not. Rule 6. If a call comes in and the voice on the other end sounds like someone you know, do not speak first. Ask them a question only the real person would know. If they answer incorrectly, hang up. Log the call as redacted. Rule 7. You may get a distress call from the Whispering Pines Police Department. This is impossible. The station was shut down in 1993. Do not respond. Rule 8. Never, under any circumstances, acknowledge the 12th line on the call log. If you do, pray. I read the list 3 times, the words blurring together as a cold, sinking feeling settled in my stomach. I glanced at the old call log screen beside my desk. The display flickered weakly, listing my received calls. 11 lines. Only 11. I swallowed hard, feeling a faint tremor in my hands. Then, right before my eyes, a 12th call appeared. No number, no ID. Just one word, written in static-filled text. Listen. The 12th line on the call log flickered faintly, the word listen pulsing like a heartbeat. I stared at it, my breath slow, measured, careful, like a diver standing at the edge of a deep trench, knowing that once I went under, there would be no coming back. The dispatch center was eerily quiet. The only sounds were the hum of the fluorescent lights overhead and the faint buzz of the old radio sitting on the shelf behind me. Snow drifted outside the small window, heavy and constant, turning the world beyond into an endless sea of white. I reached for the call log terminal and tapped the screen, trying to clear the anomaly. But the 12th call refused to disappear. The log was frozen, stuck in place, as if whatever had written that word was still waiting for me to acknowledge it. I wasn't about to. Instead, I took a slow breath and turned my attention back to the list of rules. My eyes locked on Rule 5. Sometimes, you will receive a call from your own number. You will be tempted to answer. Do not. I swallowed hard, my pulse quickening. That had to be a joke, right? Some creepy initiation thing. An old dispatcher's idea of hazing. Then the phone rang, loud, sharp, piercing. I jumped, my pulse hammering as I instinctively reached for the receiver. But as my fingers hovered over it, I saw the caller ID screen. It was my own number. The line went cold. My stomach twisted itself into knots. A mistake. A glitch. It had to be. The phone kept ringing. 5 rings. 6. 7. Each chime dug deeper into my skull, pressing against my nerves. My fingers twitched. I could just pick up and... No. Snatched my hand back as if the receiver had burned me. The rules. The goddamn rules. Do not answer. The phone rang one last time. Then it stopped. The call log blinked. A new line appeared, right beneath the 12th entry. Call received. No response. I exhaled sharply, my entire body wired with tension. That should have been the end of it. But just as I was about to move away, the voicemail light blinked. A single message, 6 seconds long. I sat there for a long moment, hand hovering over the play button. I shouldn't, but I did. The recording clicked on, static-filled, distant. At first, there was only breathing. Slow, wet, ragged, like someone trying to force air through a crushed windpipe. Then, a voice. Not just any voice. Mine. You shouldn't be here. The message cut off. The silence that followed was absolute. I sat there, numb, staring at the receiver as if it had grown teeth. The walls of the dispatch center suddenly felt too close, the air too still, like the entire building was holding its breath. I turned slowly to the observation window that overlooked the snowy streets outside. The lot was empty. Or at least, I thought it was. Until I saw the figure. Standing at the edge of the street lamp's glow. Motionless. Watching. And even through the glass, even through the storm, I could hear it breathing. The figure outside the dispatch center hadn't moved. It stood just beyond the reach of the flickering street lamp, barely visible through the swirling snow. Tall, unmoving. Its presence itched at the back of my skull like a splinter too deep to pull free. I didn't move either. Didn't blink. Didn't breathe. The only sound in the room was the soft click of the clock ticking on the wall. Then the phone rang again. Sharp, insistent, demanding. I wrenched my gaze away from the window, heart slamming against my ribs. I already knew, before I even checked the caller ID. Rule 7. You may get a distress call from the Whispering Pines Police Department. This is impossible. The station was shut down in 1993. Do not respond. The phone screen glowed in the dim light. Caller ID. Whispering Pines Police. A twisting sickness coiled in my gut. It was a mistake. A trick. The phone kept ringing. 5 times. 6. 7. My body itched to pick it up, To break the rule, to ask who was calling from a place that shouldn't exist. I clenched my fists, forcing myself to wait it out. The phone rang once more, then cut off. Silence. The voicemail light blinked. A new message. I licked my lips, my breath coming too fast. Don't listen. I shouldn't listen. I hit play anyway. Crackling static. Then, a voice. Deep, garbled, distant, like it had been recorded on an old broken tape. We've got a 1057, need assistance at Old Highway 21. A pause. A long, awful pause. Then the voice. Lower, now. Closer. Operator, can you hear me? A rush of distortion drowned out the words, like the tape had been chewed up. Then something else spoke through the static. Not a voice. Not human. Something hollow. Broken. Come see. The message cut off. I slammed the phone down, shoving myself away from the desk, my pulse hammering against my skull. I grabbed the rule sheet, scanning it again. The Whispering Pines Police Department didn't exist. It had been abandoned for 30 years. The town history file was vague on why. Some people said there was a fire. Some people said the officers vanished, but no one ever talked about it directly. No one ever went there. I turned back to the window. The figure was gone. The parking lot was empty. But I wasn't alone. Something knocked. Not at the door. Not on the glass. From inside the room. 3 slow taps. Pause. Then 3 more. I turned my head slowly, dreading what I'd see. The radio scanner on the shelf had turned itself on. The dial twitched, turning on its own, the static morphing into something that wasn't static anymore. It was breathing. Slow, wet, raspy. And then, through the radio speaker, something mimicked my own voice perfectly. Operator, can you hear me? The radio static filled the room, twisting itself into something not quite human. Operator, can you hear me? My voice, but it wasn't me. It came through the old radio scanner, distorted, unnatural, too slow, like someone was replaying my own words back to me, stretching them apart, breaking them down. I grabbed the handset off the desk, my grip clammy. Who is this? The radio hissed, crackled, then, knocking, loud, sharp, from the back of the dispatch center. 3 knocks, pause, 3 more. I jolted up so fast my chair nearly toppled over. My hand flew to the rule sheet, my eyes scanning desperately. Rule 5. Sometimes, you will receive a call from your own number. You will be tempted to answer. Do not. No, not that one. Rule 8. Never, under any circumstances, acknowledge the 12th line on the call log. If you do, pray. I turned to the call log screen. There were 11 calls. Then, right before my eyes, the 12th line appeared. No number, no ID, just a single word. Inside. My stomach dropped. The room suddenly felt too small, too tight. The fluorescent lights hummed louder, buzzing like angry wasps trapped behind glass. I turned my head slowly, toward the back hallway, the hallway that led to storage, to the breaker room, to the door that should have been locked. The knocking came again, heavier this time. Something was in here with me. Then, the phone rang, loud, shrill, cutting through the thick, suffocating silence. I whipped back around, staring at the caller ID screen. It wasn't a number, just 3 words, blinking in faint green text. Dispatch Center, Line 2. The second phone line. The internal phone, the one inside the building. I swallowed, my throat dry, my fingers hovering over the receiver. Do not answer. The rules screamed at me. Every instinct I had screamed at me. But then, from the radio speaker, my own voice whispered again. Pick up. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to drown out the sound. The phone kept ringing. I reached forward, my fingers trembling, and pressed the button to send it straight to voicemail. The phone went dead. For a moment, the room was silent. Then, the intercom clicked on. The sound came from above me, the small ceiling-mounted speaker crackling to life. At first, there was only breathing, wet, rattling, wrong. Then, a voice. Not mine this time, not human. "I see you." The lights flickered violently, and then from the back hallway, the storage room door creaked open. The storage room door should have been locked. It sat at the very back of the dispatch center, past the narrow hallway where the breaker room and the emergency supplies were stored. No one used it. No one had a reason to. And yet, as I stood frozen in place, I heard it creak open wider. The sound of metal hinges, stiff with age. The air in the room shifted, growing dense and heavy, pressing against my chest like deep water. From the intercom, the voice had stopped speaking, but I could still hear it breathing. The hallway leading to the storage room was dark. The emergency lights cast long, flickering shadows against the walls, stretching toward me like twisting fingers. I reached for my flashlight. My hands trembled as I clicked it on. The weak yellow beam barely cut through the darkness. I took a slow step forward, then another. I didn't want to do this, but I couldn't just sit here, waiting for whatever was inside to find me first. The rules. I needed to remember the rules. I reached for the paper on my desk, skimming through it, my vision blurring with panic. Then my eyes locked onto Rule 6. If a call comes in and the voice on the other end sounds like someone you know, do not speak first. Ask them a question only the real person would know. If they answer incorrectly, hang up. Log the call as redacted. I shuddered. The voice from the intercom. It hadn't just spoken, it had mimicked me. I took another step toward the hallway. The floorboards creaked beneath my weight. The temperature dropped sharply, breath fogging in front of me, as if I had stepped into an open freezer. And then, something moved inside the storage room. Not a shuffle, not footsteps. Something dragging. Something big. I stopped. The flashlight flickered in my grip. The door, now fully open, led into a pitch-black room. I could see rows of metal shelves, emergency kits, stacks of old equipment, but beyond that, nothing. The air inside was wrong, thick, still, suffocating, and then, from the darkness, a voice, not distorted this time, not distant, clear, familiar. "Ethan?" My heart nearly stopped. That voice. I knew that voice. It was my sister's. "Ethan, are you there?" No, this wasn't real. My sister was dead. I buried her 3 years ago. I swallowed hard, my pulse hammering, forcing myself to follow the rule. I had to ask a question, something only the real her would know. My voice cracked. What was the name of the dog we had growing up?" A pause. A long, agonizing pause. Then, a slow, sickening laugh. Not hers. Not human. The shelves rattled violently. Something inside scraped against the floor. And then the voice came again, twisted and wrong, like a tape recording playing too slow. "Come see." I ran. I turned on my heel and sprinted back toward the main room. The storage door slammed shut behind me, rattling on its hinges. I threw myself against the dispatch desk, knocking over the phone, the radio, everything in my scramble to grab the rule sheet. My hands were shaking. I shouldn't have responded. I shouldn't have asked anything. I skimmed the list, desperate, searching for something, anything, about what happens if you break rule number 6. Then I saw it, handwritten at the bottom of the page, a note I hadn't noticed before. "If you hear the voice of the dead, do not let them in. If they enter, they will never leave." A new sound filled the room. A slow, soft tapping. Not from the storage room this time. Not from the intercom. From the front door. 3 slow knocks. Pause. 3 more. Through the dispatch window, I saw it. It was waiting. The knocking continued. 3 slow taps. Pause. 3 more. My breath came fast and shallow, my body frozen at the dispatch desk, my fingers clutching the crumpled rule sheet so tightly my knuckles had gone white. Through the frosted glass of the front door, the shadowy figure stood motionless. Tall, unmoving, waiting. The air in the dispatch center felt different now, thick, charged, like the static before a lightning strike. I tried to calm myself, tried to think. The rules. What did the rules say? I scanned the list again, my hands trembling. Nothing about the front door. Nothing about what happens when the knocking moves outside. But there was one rule that still hadn't come into play yet. Rule 3. The phone will ring at exactly 3:13 a.m. It will not be a person. Let it go to voicemail. Do not answer. I glanced at the clock. 3:12 a.m. My stomach twisted into knots. The knocking had stopped. The figure hadn't moved. It just stood there, shrouded in darkness beyond the dim, flickering streetlight. The wind outside howled through the trees, whipping snow against the windows. I swallowed hard. Then, the phone rang. 3:13 a.m. I nearly screamed. The sudden noise sent my pulse into overdrive, my entire body snapping into fight-or-flight mode. I clutched the edge of the desk, forcing myself to stay still. Let it go to voicemail. The ringing continued, sharp and shrill. I stared at the caller ID. No number, no name. Just a blinking message. Outside. My fingers twitched over the receiver. Don't pick up. Do not pick up. The knocking resumed. Louder this time. Faster. I clenched my jaw, resisting every instinct screaming at me to do something. The phone stopped ringing. Then, voicemail notification. I should have ignored it, but my body moved on its own. I reached forward, pressed the button. The voicemail clicked on. At first, there was only static. Then, breathing. Wet, ragged, hollow breathing. A long pause. Then a voice. Not human. Not right. Let me in. I slammed the phone down so hard it nearly shattered. My heart felt like it would explode out of my chest. The front door creaked. I turned my head slowly. The lock was turning. The knob twisted back and forth, gently at first, then violently. Something was trying to come inside. I bolted upright, knocking over my chair, scrambling for the emergency gun locker mounted on the wall. I fumbled with the key, my hands slick with sweat. The door rattled harder. Then, silence. I turned, my breath caught in my throat. The shadow outside was gone. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then I heard it. A creak, from behind me, inside the dispatch center. The breaker room door was open. Something was inside with me. The breaker room door was open. That door had been locked. I was alone. But something else was here with me now. The air inside the dispatch center had changed. It felt thick, heavy, wrong, like I was breathing through wet cloth. The fluorescent lights overhead flickered wildly, buzzing like angry hornets. I swallowed hard, my ears straining against the silence. Then, a single footstep, coming from inside the breaker room. I gripped the emergency firearm in my shaking hands, the weight of it foreign, unfamiliar. I had gone through training. I had shot at paper targets. But this? I didn't know what I was dealing with. Another footstep, closer. I took a slow, careful step backward, my boots barely making a sound on the linoleum. Then the radio clicked on. The old police scanner, still sitting on the shelf behind my desk, let out a burst of static. Then, a voice. Not just any voice. Mine. But it wasn't me. It was wrong. Don't move. I froze. Another footstep. Closer. I couldn't see it yet. It was waiting in the shadows. The voice on the radio whispered again. Don't turn around. My breath hitched. I clenched my jaw, my pulse hammering. The rule sheet. I still had it clutched in my free hand. Frantic, I scanned it. Nothing about the breaker room. Nothing about voices on the radio telling me not to turn around. I had no instructions for this. Then, a low creaking noise. Not from the breaker room. From the desk behind me. Right behind me. The back of my neck prickled. Something was standing there, close enough to touch me. The radio crackled again, my voice whispering through the static. If you see it, it sees you. I squeezed my eyes shut. I was not alone, but I couldn't look. I needed to get out. Slowly, I took a step toward the front door. The air behind me shifted. Something moved. The whispering voice on the radio laughed. A slow, distorted, broken laugh, like it was enjoying this. I took another step, and another. Then, the emergency lights cut out. The entire dispatch center plunged into total darkness. For a split second, there was nothing. Then I heard it, right in my ear. Found you. A cold, wet hand clamped around my wrist. I screamed. The hand was ice cold, wet, wrong. It wrapped around my wrist with inhuman strength, the fingertips too long, too sharp, pressing into my skin like exposed bone. The air around me felt like it had been drained of warmth, of sound, of life itself. I ripped my arm away, stumbling backward, my breath coming in short, ragged gasps. Darkness pressed against me, absolute and suffocating. I swung the gun up, but I couldn't see a damn thing. Then, a sound, a low, rattling exhale, right in front of me. My mind screamed at me to run, but I couldn't see the exit, couldn't tell which way was safe. The radio crackled again. Not my voice this time. Someone else, a child, software breathy, familiar. He's outside. My stomach clenched. The little girl, the first call of the night. A cold realization flooded me. I hadn't followed Rule 2. If the caller says, he's outside, hang up immediately. Do not acknowledge them. I had talked to her. I had broken the rule. And now, he wasn't outside anymore. He was here. A rush of movement came from the darkness, and I fired blindly. The muzzle flash lit up the room for a fraction of a second. I saw it. A tall, stretched figure, its face an empty void, a shifting black absence where features should have been. Its arms were too long, ending in dripping fingers. And its mouth. God, its mouth. It wasn't a normal mouth. It was a hole. A deep, sucking blackness, opening wider as it let out a sound that wasn't a scream, wasn't a voice. It was a dial tone, the sound of a dead phone line. The shot had no effect. The thing lurched forward fast. I threw myself to the side, crashing into the dispatch desk, knocking over equipment, feeling wires snap beneath my hands. I needed light. Now my fingers found the breaker panel. I didn't have time to think. I flipped every single switch up. The emergency lights roared to life. The creature let out a piercing, garbled noise, like a phone line glitching. I turned, breath catching in my throat. It was gone. The room was empty. The temperature had returned to normal. The dispatch center looked the same as before, except for the destruction around me. The phone was off the hook. The radio was silent. I looked down at my wrist. Deep, blackened fingerprints were burned into my skin. The clock on the wall read 4:07 a.m. I was alive. The shift was almost over, and the rules had held. I didn't leave until the sun rose. The next shift worker, an older guy named Ray, came in, shaking snow off his coat. He barely glanced at the destruction. "Rough night?" he asked, yawning. I just stared at him. He didn't wait for a response, just sat down, flipped open his own clipboard, and started going through the morning routine, like nothing had happened, like this was normal. I turned to leave, but then I glanced at the call log screen. My stomach twisted. There were no records, no missed calls, no unknown numbers, No 12th line, just a normal, empty screen, as if the entire night had never happened. I hesitated, then glanced back at Ray. "You ever get any weird calls here?" I asked carefully. He didn't even look up from his clipboard. "Yeah, you get used to it." I swallowed. "Ray," I said slowly, "who wrote these rules?" He finally looked up. His expression was unreadable. "Nobody wrote them," he said. "They were here before the station was built." I stared at him, my pulse picking up again, but before I could say anything else, the phone rang. Ray reached for the receiver, completely unfazed, but I saw the caller ID. Dispatch Center, Line 2. The call was coming from inside. Ray answered without hesitation. 911, what's your emergency? For a moment, he listened. Then he froze. His knuckles went white around the receiver. A single bead of sweat slid down his temple. Then he hung up. He didn't look at me. Didn't speak. Just reached into his desk, pulled out a fresh copy of the rules, and placed it in front of him. Like this had happened before. Like it would happen again. I turned and walked out, the cold morning air hitting me like a wall. And as I climbed into my car, gripping the wheel too tightly, I realized something. I hadn't heard what the voice on the line had said, but I didn't have to. I knew. He's outside.